Welcome to Unlocking the Club. I'm your host, Angela Taylor, and I really appreciate you all joining us today for our Facebook Live with our special guest, Solita C. Roberts, as we talk about empowerment through style. As a follow-up to our previous conversation, Solita was a special guest on our 29th episode, which aired in December of 2022. And I learned so much about fashion and style and perspective and how your mindset and your style actually should collide and could influence and impact each other in really powerful ways. And so, really looking forward to having a conversation with Solita as a follow up to that. We received so many comments from our listeners and some of our subscribers to the podcast after that episode. I know I was in conversation several times with several people about that particular episode and what that experience was like for all of our guests and for myself, and what I actually learned from Solita in that particular episode as I am on my own style journey here as I'm 51 years old. I'm still learning about my style, the things that I prefer, how I feel, and how I feel should determine and dictate the clothes that I want to wear in that particular moment. So again, thank you all for taking a moment to join us on the Unlocking the Club Facebook page, for joining us on the Code Breakers Lounge, our private Facebook group where we, roll up our sleeves and really connect with one another at deeper levels in a lot of these really important topics that we're discussing on Unlocking the Club. And also want to say a hello and a welcome to Solita Roberts listeners and viewers and network, as we are going live from several of Solita's platforms as well. And as we speak, Solita, just want to welcome you into Unlocking the Club. Thank you so much for carving out time. I know you're incredibly busy these days, so thank you for carving out time to be part of our Facebook Live event.
Oh, thank you for having me. Facebook Live is something I'm new to, so I'm looking forward to the experience and, of course, engaging with everyone. I see I have a friend of mine, connecting from LinkedIn, so it's definitely a pleasure being here, Angela. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, it's already getting started. So we have Sania D. Douglas, who is joining from LinkedIn Live. Thank you, and hello to you as well. Saying a quick hello to everyone in the show. Thank you for joining us. We also had another Facebook user saying hello, ladies, and keep them coming. We are going to be in conversation for the next 45 to 60 minutes tonight, and this is about you all as well. We want to hear from you. If you have a comment or if you have a question for Solita and or myself, please post it in Facebook. Please post it on LinkedIn. We will share as many of those questions and answer as many of those questions as we possibly can today, because we want to get your perspective on what mindset and style and how you have become empowered through your own styling process. So I guess I want to start there with you, Solita. We're going to talk a couple things today. We'll go over some things that really resonated with me about our conversation that we had in December for the podcast. We'll talk about the current events and where style is showing up in really powerful ways for women, and Black women in particular, of all ages and in all industries. But I just want to get from your standpoint, we had that conversation a couple of months ago, and I know you have so many things going on. And every time I see you, whether you're doing your Facebook Lives or you're posting on social media, you look fantastic every single time that I see you in this blog. But what does style mean to you, and how has that continued to evolve over time, and what has changed over the last couple of months?
Oh, first of all, thank you very much. For me, style is a way of telling my story, of connecting, of building my brand and having these different conversations. Whenever I show up on, first time I'm connecting with someone from Facebook that I've probably never met. Whenever you see me on screen, it's not about me looking good, but it's the impact and the energy that I want you to get from the way I show up. Right. And that's why every time you see me, it's important that I represent the way that I want to show up and the message that I want to give. So for me, style is how I communicate, it's how I tell my story, and it's how I build my brand. In terms of what what I've seen changing with style in terms of my own personal style. Coming out of the pandemic, moving from a different country, living in the US now, yes, my style have definitely changed because
Yeah,
I've worked in corporate before coming to the US. So I had that finance corporate look, not the boring black and white, mind you.
that was me. I lived in New York City, so it was like the earth tones, blacks and browns and chocolate charcoal grays.
Listen to me. I spent over 15 years in banking. My first banking job that I got was as a teller. And the uniform at the time I didn't qualify for the company uniform, so I had to wear, get that corporate look. And so I got this black and white uniform because again, everybody's like, that's the official corporate uniform when you're in
Yeah,
finance.
yeah,
Yeah. After that, it was a no. Any opportunity I got to infuse my personality into my style, I took it. So it was not that corporate. It pains me. It pains me because it's so restrictive.
yeah,
It doesn't allow you to express, not only express who you are. I think about it. Every day you go to work, every day is not the same. Some days are very challenging. Some days are like, oh, I don't want to be here.
yeah,
If
yeah,
you're having that mindset and you're feeling disconnected from your job, or something is happening in your personal life and you're wearing that uniform, that dreary look, what is it doing to your psyche? What
yeah.
is it doing to your mindset? As opposed to when I show up on camera, it's colors, it's fun. That's bringing the energy for me because energy is transferable. However, I show up, the energy that I have, people are going to connect with that, right? And so, yeah, personal style for me, it's very much so storytelling.
Yeah, well, and do you think, when I think about Black women and style and colors, um, it struck me as really interesting how often, when you're in conversation with others, how trying out colors felt like a really bold move. And I'm curious, I think that it's not just something that we learn on a regular basis or that we choose, but I think it's a learned behavior over time. And so, share your perspective on Black women and using those pops of color and how we have to actually give ourselves permission to use colors.
Yeah, it's let's go back to this mindset or the narrative that surrounds Black women and how we show up, right? There's is this idea that if we're showing up, try not to be too much, right? Everybody's expecting us to show up based on what they define and say that we should be and how we should show up in the world. Don't try not to be too much. Bold colors and Black women, you're being too loud. It's too
Mm,
much. You're taking up too much space.
yeah,
And that narrative is seeped into our psyche, right? We start to believe it. It's like, you know what? We need to show up in the workplace, not attract too much attention, don't stand out. And if you think back to what you were told as to when you did your first interview or maybe your first corporate job, what you were told to wear. More than likely, you were told wear that black and white uniform.
yeah,
Just you don't want to stand out too much. And as a result, you find women now, even the women that I work with, you're like, oh, I'm suggesting wearing a pink blazer as opposed to the black. That shock and panic and fear. It's like, no, I can't do that because you're going to be standing out. And we've been told and taught not to stand out.
yeah,
But for me, it's let's change the narrative, let's change the belief and the narrative in terms of how people expect us to show up.
yeah,
If we're buying into that narrative, the only thing you're doing is allowing the narrative to continue.
yeah.
If you love colors, you don't have to go full green suit walking into the workplace. But you
But
can
why
do
not if you do choose to?
if that's your thing,
Yeah,
you feel confident doing it,
yeah,
absolutely do it. But if you're testing the waters in terms of colors and you want to, and you should wear colors because we look fantastic in
we
every
do.
color.
Yeah,
Okay. Embrace it.
yeah.
Embrace it. Try small, subtle ways in doing it, but don't allow that narrative to control you.
I 100% agree with you. There is a narrative, and it's one of those things that it's not like it was a spoken narrative. It's not like that we heard it all the time, but I think that we observed people around us, people in our networks that indicated, whether it was maybe our aunts or our mothers or any, Black women that we looked up to and we respected, that indicated that you shouldn't be too bold, that you shouldn't attract too much attention, like, right, that just don't draw too much attention to yourself. And the truth of the matter is, every single time someone with our complexion, right, wears a pop of color, you get so many compliments. And that was the thing that was, for the first few years that I started to notice that, like, it was this interesting juxtaposition, was that people like, that color is beautiful on your skin. And I'm like, why don't I wear this more often? Why don't I choose to? And I think you hit it right, the nail on the head, is we were trying not to stand out.
Yeah, because that's what we were told, right?
That's what we were told.
It's like you got that good corporate job, go and put your head down, do the work, let them recognize you based on your work. Try not to take up too much space. But we're in this phase or this stage of life where, yes, we understood at the time, our parents, guardians, aunt, uncles, the time that they grew up in, right? And they had to find ways to navigate, now entering that corporate space. They, try different things to navigate, to be accepted. Yeah. But we're at this stage now where we're talking about dismantling unconscious bias and the biases around not only women, but Black women and women of color. Yeah. So it's up to us to say, okay, if we're trying to change and ask the workplaces to change, to create an environment where we feel a sense of belonging, where it's inclusive, we have to look at the way that we're showing up. How are we boxing ourselves in, right? We can no longer use, and I understand it was for safety. There were a lot of reasons why generations before told us to show up this way. Yeah. But if we're saying we're no longer accepting or working with companies, organizations that's perpetuating these narrative and biases, we also have to step into that boldness and say, what are some of the biases and boxes that I'm putting myself in? Yeah, be aware of it. Become aware of how you're putting yourself in the box based on the narratives that how you should show up. And then when you're aware, what actions are you going to take to release them and really step into your full self?
Absolutely. You have to unlock your truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Share that story and then reclaim your power, right? We have to let go of some of these things that we have let take hold and make sure it's our choice and our decision whether or not we do something. And there was a great article in The Cut by Timby Dittenhurst. And I'm hoping to get her on the show. She is about to have her first book, I believe, published in May. And we'll share a link to that article on our Facebook page so you get a chance to read it. But she spoke to the fact that she didn't want to wear like her nails done or her long nails, and how it took her the longest time to like have like a really detailed like nail job done. And then she started seeing white women showing up with there's nails done with like bedazzled nails, all these different things, and was like, wait a minute, like this is something that I did like maybe on the weekends in private
or for holidays.
Why am I not doing it now? And I think we all should take a moment to pause and reflect and notice those spaces where we're choosing to not show up fully because we think that there's going to be some negative consequences. And sometimes there will be, right? Let's be true. Like, right, this is the world that we're living in. But we can't live in fear all the time because it makes you, when you suppress who you are, it's debilitating in different ways.
Yeah. And just adding to that, you talked about the nails. I'm trying to remember something was on television, either a commercial or a show that I was watching recently. I don't remember because I watch a lot of television as my as my way of decompressing. But I noticed the actress in that particular scene, her nails were long. like literally long nails. Yes, she opted for a nude color, but I looked at it, I'm like, had that been a black woman or a woman of color,
Yeah.
someone would have made a comment, don't go with your nails that long. We can't have you in a commercial this way. Change that, because it's, don't bring your, and I'm going to say this, like, don't bring your blackness. We don't want to see your blackness.
Right.
It's like, I am black.
Yeah.
There's no getting away from
Yes.
me being black.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
There's a lot of labels sometimes that come with it when people inside of certain identities wear something
yeah.
or show up in some certain way.
Exactly,
It's unfortunate.
exactly. And we can't buy into who created the labels. I did not create the angry black woman label.
Yeah.
I did not create the label that as a black woman, I need to shrink to fit. I did not create that label. So why am I buying into that label?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And as you said before, people, there are consequences that's going to come with it. When you decided to walk into your office, dress professionally according to the dress code of your company, and you're wearing pink nails, someone is going to look at you and be like, oh, you're being too much. Why this? But guess what? If you don't, that person is holding something else
Yeah.
based on your identity and your personality against you.
And
So
you
why
can't
am I using
control it. You can't control it anyway.
exactly?
Yeah.
So don't use that energy, the energy that you use to try to fit that person's definition or reality of how you should be is
Yeah.
energy that you should be using to
Yeah.
pour into your cup, to
Absolutely.
focus on the most important things in life that you have to navigate: family, friends, community. Like, I'm not using my energy. I audience may not know this, I'm from the Caribbean. I have a different perspective on the way I show up and the way that women should show up. I'm not using energy to shrink myself because you are uncomfortable with the fact that I'm a human being.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Well, you know who also is changing the narrative around nails and long eyelashes and fashion, both on court and off court, are these women's basketball players. And you know I'm biased a little bit, but the WNBA held its 2023 draft a couple of weeks ago in New York City. And I have to say, I just had a huge smile on my face when I saw these beautiful women of all different shapes and sizes, like walking the orange carpet for the draft with so much pride. I mean, you can look at these images on the screen right here and like how they feel. You can see them look on their faces.
I get goosebumps when I'm looking at black women showing up like this.
Yeah.
Goosebumps. And for some, someone somewhere be, oh, they're celebrities or they should. It's like, no, they've realized the power of personal style and when it comes to branding, right? And how you show up. You leverage it based on what your personal style is. I mean, we're looking at the women.
Yeah.
Everyone looks completely different because that person is tapping into how they want to show up, how they want to represent themselves, and the message that they want to send. So we are not going to look the same because we're not the same. The most important thing is to tap into who you are and really embrace that. So it gives me goosebumps and so much pride and joy to see Black women doing that.
Yeah, well, and I think you bring up a really good point is like I, worked with the WNBA in the inception, 1997, so a long time ago. And one of the things that I noticed that when the players started to choose their outfits, it almost felt like they were compelled to try to look hyper feminine, right? To dispel any myths that there may be about female athletes. And what I am really proud of with these women in so many different ways, they are using their platform in really powerful ways. And style and fashion is just one of those ways. But they have found their authentic self and they're styling themselves for whatever it is. Like if it's a pantsuit, if it's a short suit, if it's like a formal nightgown, right? Or if it's this really bad suit that you had designed for your body. They're starting to show up authentically and know what style fits their body, right? Fits their persona. And it's a lot of fun to see. And it's happening in a lot of different places with the Oscars. And you see Viola Davis on the Oscars carpet tonight is the NFL draft. And as soon as this Facebook Live is over, I'm probably going to grab some dinner and watch the NFL draft. But you'll see these young men who are about to change the life and the trajectory of their family by getting drafted tonight. We'll see them take a lot of pride in how they show up on the red carpet and have their unique style as part of it, whether it's the inside of their suit jackets, having some special
message notes. Yes. And that's the power of storytelling through style, right? Because if you think about it, if you met one of those young men tonight and he's looking at, oh, I love your suit. What's engraved inside? What's there? There's a story behind it. And what happens? You get to know that person on a real level because they decided, I'm going to be me, right? I'm not going to shrink. I'm not going to conform. I'm just going to be who I am. Yeah. And I think for a lot of us, we have to get to that phase and where we're saying, I am no longer going to shrink. I'm no longer going to conform or fit myself into this box. Yeah. Because what do you want your impact to be generations from now? Yeah. We're seeing it with the younger generation, but that doesn't mean we can't do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we are, guardians. We're taking care of kids, whether or not you're a teacher, whether or not you're a parent. Yeah. You need to be able to influence them and let them know it's okay to be yourself in this world.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's something that really stood out in my conversation with you for our episode in December, Solita. And we'll kind of show you here on screen. You'll get a chance to see the graphic for episode 29, where we had Solita talking about empowerment through style. And there were so many different things. I listened to the episode recently again because there were so many nuggets that continue to show up in some way, shape, or form in my day-to-day, right? And I just want to share a few of those clips with you and kind of dig a little bit deeper into what you were sharing with us during that episode. The first one, it came up, we were in conversation. I literally had just read your bio and you had an experience as you came on screen after having heard your bio read. And I think that when you talk about knowing what impact you want to have, what your calling is, I think that you shared a little bit about it. And on the back side of this video, we'll play this clip for you real quickly. But on the back side of it, I want to dig a little bit deeper into what you shared.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
That a little bit, because I think it's such a great point. Is so often, I know a lot of times Black women do not pause to acknowledge their greatness. Yeah. The greatness that they show up in every day as mothers, as sisters, as daughters, as friends in the workplace. And it is in those moments maybe where somebody acknowledges you, or where you have to sit and listen to someone reading your bio, where you actually recognize all of the wonderful and amazing things that you've done. And that is you. Like, I read your bio and was just so impressed with the inspiration behind the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's and just like what you're saying, it's oftentimes, I think, as women and as Black women, we get into that space. I mean, you talk about it a lot on your podcast here, and and the work that you do is that we have to put our heads down and just try to climb the ladder and get to the next and get to the next.
And sometimes what happens, we're so focused on everything that didn't go right, the ifs, the ands, and, we should have done this or should not have done that, or maybe we're not exactly at the level that we want to be. And we don't always take a beat to just say, okay, where am I today? What have I accomplished, right? Because you've changed. There are things that you've learned about yourself. There are things that you would have accomplished, but we're so focused on getting to the next level that we don't always just take that pause and to recognize where we're at as professionals, the things that we've done both personally and professionally. It's not just professionally, but things we've done as well in our personal lives. And I think more than anything, that's something that I had to remind myself a lot this year. Every time I get frustrated or I feel like, okay, I'm not at the level that I need to be and I'm second guessing myself, I just kind of take that break and say, okay, Solita, what are some things that you accomplished today? What is something that you are really proud of today? We oftentimes look at what have I done in a year or what I've done in 5 years, but we have to bring it down. Like a mentor of mine, he's like,
Sometimes just getting through the day is difficult. How about just looking at the moment, the hour, that second? And we have to look at the things that we accomplish in the same way. What did I do today that I can be proud of? And just take a moment to celebrate that. So just hearing my bio again just kind of reminded me of that, just taking a moment to just really acknowledging like the work that I've done. And I'm still ways away from the impact that I really want to make, but I'm on my way, and that's the most important thing.
You're on your way, and that is the most important thing. And so I want to take a moment to see what you are celebrating about the journey that you've been on, and acknowledge what is going on in your life. And I would love for those of you that are listening to us today to post in the chat what you're celebrating, how you're celebrating yourself, because we want to honor all of those things. And it doesn't have to be some magnificent thing. It doesn't have to be something monumental. Let's not compare ourselves to our peers to justify us celebrating ourselves. So, Solita, what are you celebrating in this moment?
I'm consistent with my style. I realize I'm wearing the same necklace from that interview. Like, that's consistency, and sometimes that's important to remind ourselves. It's not how many times we might have failed or how many times we might not have won, but how many times we actually tried, how many times we put ourselves out there, how many times we took a leap of faith and bet on ourselves, how many times did we say yes to ourselves, right? I think that level of consistency and keep going is what's going to get us to the next level, get us the things that we want and the impact that we want to have. But just being reminded that consistency is key. You can't just do it today and then expect the results tomorrow, but also realizing that you may be doing everything in your power today to get to that level that you want, to get that interview, to get that promotion at work, but it's not coming. Doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It just means it's not your time as yet. Just keep going. Once that environment, the goal that you have for yourself is the right one, and it's in alignment with your values and your beliefs and what you want for yourself, just keep going, stay consistent, keep showing up for yourself, and keep believing that anything is possible.
Yes, anything is possible. And when you think about consistency, we're humans. And as humans, one of the things that we consistently do is look toward the negative. A good friend of mine, my business partner, Stacey Parsons, says all the time that the negative is like Velcro and the positive is like Teflon.
Yeah.
Right. We are really consistent and really good at when something doesn't go the way we want it to go, beating ourselves on the head, like, right. And getting down on ourselves or thinking that, right, whatever we wanted is not possible.
Yeah.
What we have to be better at is being consistently good at accepting grace. I was at lunch yesterday with Sheree Buckner Webb, who was one of my guests from August, and the legend here in Idaho, the first Black senator in Idaho. And she was giving the hostess grace because the hostess kept saying, well, I'm just, or maybe not. And she's like, no. Receive our compliments. You were great today. And I think as Black women, we need to do a better job of that more consistently.
Yeah, it's because it's this belief. Yes, we're putting our heads down. Yes, we want to accomplish things and we want to have, amazing lives. But it's this idea. I heard this on a call that I was on, and I was like, no. It's this idea that we shouldn't show our wealth. We shouldn't show our success.
Yeah.
We should not. It's like, no, don't do that. Don't flaunt your success. Don't talk about the things that you would have accomplished or the things that you're doing. And it's like, why not?
Yeah.
There's a difference between me saying, okay, Angela, we're talking about pizza and burgers, and in the conversation I'm talking about, oh yeah, and I just bought this, and you kind of rambling, like you bragging,
Yeah.
you being boastful.
Yeah.
There's a difference between that and you acknowledging the things that you've accomplished, you acknowledging the phase that you are, the phase that you are in your life right now, the steps that you might have taken, the beliefs that you decided, okay, I'm putting my hand up for this project. It's okay to say, I did this or I did that. One, if you don't say it, I'm going to quote but paraphrase Bozoma St. John, one of my
Mm,
soul sisters on the web,
yeah.
when it comes to representation and how we should show up and how we should be bold in our truth and who we are. I was listening to her on a LinkedIn Live where she said, no one was talking about me until I start talking about myself.
Yes, right there. Say that one more time for the people in the back that couldn't hear you.
No one was talking about me until I start talking about myself. And
Yeah.
sometimes staying quiet,
Yes.
it's not going to get you what you want.
Yeah.
It's not, oh yeah, I'm putting in the work. We've been told that. Put in the work. Get that promotion, get that whatever you're looking for based on the work that, people should recognize my work. I'm doing great work, but sometimes you have to say, I am good at what I do.
Yeah.
I did this, I did that. And it's okay to say it. It's okay to acknowledge it. And I think for us as women and as Black women is owning that power.
Yeah.
Owning it and saying, I have done X, Y, and Z, because it's the only way we will get to where we want to go.
Yeah, but we have to advocate for ourselves.
Yeah,
in the way the world works, you can put your head down and you can work hard, and that is going to get you in the conversation. But if you don't advocate for yourself, if you don't let people know what you're up to, the value you're bringing, they may not come to that conclusion on their own. And I think for many of us, we see others and it feels like, the people that are brown nosing, again, using those terms and using color as a reference for something that's negative. And we may not want to show up that way. But C.S. Lewis says, I think we all want to be humble, but humility isn't thinking less of yourself. It was thinking of yourself less. And I think it's really speaking of yourself less. But when you do speak of yourself and when you advocate, you need to do it strongly, right? Not just kind of dipping your toe in the water, but you need to be convicted and say it with your chest, say it with conviction. And if we don't advocate for ourselves, we're going to miss out on opportunities. And I guarantee you that is what's happening, particularly in the corporate workplace. People are behind doors advocating for themselves for opportunities, whether they're ready for it or not. And we're sitting in our office or in our cubicles, hoping that someone notices how good we are.
Waiting, or we're looking at Sue or Mary that's getting the promotion and we're being upset, you're upset, like, oh, I've been here longer, I'm more talented. But it's like, I don't subscribe to the corporate game. I don't subscribe to the definition of what the corporate game is, but it's not being afraid to ask for what you want, not being afraid to have those difficult conversations, right? You don't have to go to like the corporate game, going to every social, tracking your boss down to stalk him. Like, that's not my personality. I'm more of my strategy is, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to call that meeting with you and say, Angela, I would love to have a conversation with you. Here is where I'm at in my career. Here's where I would like to go. What do you think in terms of my goals that I have? Is there anything that you may suggest that I need to improve on? Something that I need to do? Have those conversations. And don't be afraid to take on projects that are outside of your job description. And I'm not talking about taking notes or organizing the event or bringing coffee. I'm talking about executive level projects. Projects that, based on where you're at in your company, no one would have looked at you and say, oh yeah, you should share this or you should do that. Like, I've done that. I positioned myself in spaces to be able to do those special projects. And that comes from me advocating and saying what I want.
Exactly. Well, and asking questions, right? So being curious. So the way to get the right special project is to know what your boss's boss, what keeps he or she or they up at night. What is their biggest thing to do this next quarter or this next year? And if you can help them accomplish that goal, they're going to sponsor right, your way into the next opportunity. And so
Absolutely.
it's knowing what's going on inside your company. And you mentioned this, that you didn't necessarily subscribe to the corporate system and structure. And that's true. And you shared that in our conversation on the podcast, was how important it was for you to discover your why, to discover your purpose. Yeah. So I'm going to share this clip with you real quick, and then just want to kind of talk through this on the back end about Solita's journey for discovering her purpose.
I had to sit down and really evaluate, like, what do I want my life to represent? Like, what do I want my life to represent? Not following the guidelines of, okay, you need to get a job, you need to do this, you need to do that, like, the stories we've been told, but what do I want my life to stand for? What impact do I want to make? And so I sat down. I didn't have it all figured out. Don't think I have it all figured out. I'm actually now learning a lot more of the work that I want to do and the impact that I want to have. But I really sat down and said, okay, what do I want to do? What are some of the challenges that I've experienced in my life, both personally and professionally? And how can what's that one thing, first of all, what's that one thing that I can do that would inspire me to get up every single day throughout the challenges? And that one thing was, every single day I had to get up and get dressed. So while I was struggling mentally, while I was struggling to find my community, while I was struggling to understand myself and my space and my place in this new space, I had to get up and get dressed every day. And so in that act of getting dressed represented me putting myself out there and feeling more confident being who I am.
So I saw you shaking your head as you were listening to that clip. What were you thinking? What was going through your mind?
So many things. I was thinking back to even the state that I was in mentally and emotionally during that conversation. Like, a lot of it did not come out in that conversation, but I knew what I was going through. And it just simplifying is in the act of getting dressed, how powerful that was. And unless I sit down with you and tell you my full mental state that I was in, that simple act of getting dressed changed and positioned me for where I'm at today, and what I'm doing today for this journey that I'm on, because it just reminded me that I needed to get up, keep breathing, keep trying, keep going, and really reminding myself as to who I am and what do I want to see change in the world? What impact do I want to have? Because when you're going through those challenges emotionally, mentally, whether or not it's in your career, in your business, in your life, you lost a loved one, it changes how you see life. It changes how you do life. And for me, I don't take for granted the life that I get to live. And I get to choose how I want to live my life. And that's why I'm not one to have anyone dictate to me how I should show up or buy into that narrative as to how I should show up. I know who I am. And I'm a work in progress every single day.
Yeah.
But I don't allow I refuse to allow anyone to tell me, you cannot be this person. Don't show up this way. Don't speak that way. Tone down. I refused, because I only have one life to live. And if I'm going to allow someone else to dictate and determine how I show up in this world, yes, I understand that we have to go into these different spaces to make a living, to support our family and our dreams that we have. But at the end of the day, I ask myself, if I'm shrinking who I am, if I am depleting who I am, when that day comes, am I going to regret the person that I allowed the world to tell me I should be? Or am I going to say, you know what? I made a difference. Because when I showed up with my color, When I showed up with using my voice and advocating for myself, I created an environment where other persons around me, when I show up in a conversation like this, when I do my LinkedIn lives, when I work with clients, what I'm doing is creating a space to help them change the narrative on how the world
Season.
sees us as women of color,
Yeah.
and how we want to change the narrative for the generation to come.
Yeah.
That's it. And for me, that's priceless.
Yes, price. Well, and I felt the weight of whatever it was that you were going through, just by as you're recalling it right now and in this moment. And I think what you just modeled, Solita, is really important, because people will see you, right? They'll see you on your LinkedIn lives. They'll see you on your social media, and right, they'll read your bio and say, "This is an incredible human being that's doing some amazing things," and discount the fact that you are human and that you have those moments. But sometimes, right, we don't let people see us sweat and we show up powerfully. It does not mean that there aren't situations that are happening in our lives that are traumatic, that are debilitating, that are difficult for us to get out of bed in the morning and show up fully. But I think it's really important for us. And that's one of the reasons it's important for us to share those stories with others, and context. We don't have to give all the details, but let people know it's not always easy. And you still can show up powerfully and own your power.
And that's actually, to be honest with you, that's when you need to show up for yourself,
Yeah.
right? Because I find if you don't, that's when everything that's happening to you, you get sucked into that energy of whether or not that's feeling defeated, feeling overwhelmed. That's when you need to put on that red lipstick. That's when you need to say, like, how do I want to feel right now? Because you may not be able to control the other things that's happening, but you can control how you want to feel and how you're not doing it for anyone else. Like the first thing needs to be, how do I want to feel? How do I want to show up?
I think that's a really important point, right? Because, and sometimes it is for both, like, right, but you don't have to put on that lipstick to fake the funk.
No, it's not faking.
Yes.
There's a difference.
Yes.
It's not, okay, I'm going to put it, because that's another thing.
Yeah.
Because when you're doing that, if you're just getting dressed to pretend, it's going to come out. Because if I'm wearing this, I look great, but how I'm feeling, because I'm still feeling this way, my personality, my demeanor, my body language is going to communicate that. But if you're getting dressed as a form of empowerment, like everything is going north, south, east, and west in my life right now, things are not going according to plan, but I'm not going to allow what's happening right now to defeat me. If you're getting dressed with that mindset, if you're getting dressed when you say, what is that color? What is that outfit? What is that piece that when I put it on, it reminds me of the person that I know myself to be, even though you may be struggling. It reminds you of the person that you know yourself to be. Then you think about it, you're giving yourself a hug. You're holding yourself in that safety as you navigate. But if you allow everything to, the world is doing what the world is doing, and then you're showing up not as your best self, then it feels like you're running up a hill with this weight on your shoulder. But it's like, no, the weight is there, but I need to show up for me.
And really important in order to be able to remind yourself is you have to take those moments and pause, as Solita did earlier when she heard her bio, to receive and to claim and to celebrate when things are going well in your life. If we don't pause, if we don't notice, if we don't reflect in those moments, then when we need it the most, we won't have it right at the ready. And so really important for you. And it's not you being braggadocious. It's not being you egotistical. It's you being there for yourself when you need it the most. And I think
And
that's one of the things, Solita, that you did in this next clip. You kind of talked about the clubs. Like you were similar to one of my good friends, Beverly Oden, who talks about being club adjacent. Like, right, has never quite fit into these clubs, can show up and, and connect with people, but is club adjacent. And you talked about this in the next clip about finding your own club.
Yeah.
As folks earlier on in their career and in their journey can listen to some of this advice, because it can be exhausting and debilitating and traumatic to try to fit into those clubs. So, but your aunt gave you some great advice that I think is important for us all to hear. And that advice was to teach people how you want to be treated and show people how you want to be respected. Now, how has that advice influenced your journey? And were there times that you actually didn't follow that advice?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There were times when I did not follow that advice. Because there's this, I mean, you talk about there's this idea that, especially when you're in a new environment, we always look at for ways that we can fit in. We're not trying to stand out too much. And sometimes that can be to our detriment. And so, for the first year when I moved to Atlanta and living here, not knowing anyone, not having a community, I was looking for clubs that I can fit into. And I remember specifically it felt like a group of Black women on Instagram that all knew each other and all were all supporting each other. And I felt like that was a space I needed to be in. I needed to connect with them. I needed to befriend them. And so I spent a lot of time engaging with their posts, engaging in conversation, hoping that they will notice me, right? Hoping that they'll be like, oh, who's this girl Solita that's always commenting on my posts? Let's invite her to our table, right? I felt like if I did that, that was the results I was going to get. And when nobody invited me to the table and I felt like, oh, I guess I'm not worthy and it was a reflection on me. But really and truly, what I needed to do was to figure out where I was in my life, in my career. Like, it's not trying to get into a room, but trying to understand how I can create my own community, how I can use my voice, like share my voice, what's my story on these platforms, and build my community from there. And once I have my community, then I'll be like, okay, which rooms do I want to be in?
So before I ask you this question, after these next couple of questions, we invite you all to ask Solita questions about her journey, about style, about wardrobe, etc. But how were you able, Solita, to be able to create your own club?
I had to put on my blinders. Had tunnel vision. Like I mentioned in that clip, just moving to a new country, not having a network or a community. It felt like I wanted to belong. I wanted to be in a space where I'm being seen, being accepted and being heard. And that became my focus, right? Every day, that's what I did. But, realizing that being in a new space is not about finding that club to belong to or that space to belong. It's understanding who you are, where you are in your stage of life. And which is kind of interesting now, because I think when we had that conversation, I don't think was I LinkedIn, one of LinkedIn's top voice? I don't remember.
You didn't mention it at the time, but are you now? Wait a minute, like tell us more about.
Yeah, so yeah, it was last year that I was selected as one of LinkedIn's top voices in the fashion and beauty industry. And LinkedIn don't just give those out,
Okay, let's
right?
pause and own that for a second. Like, say that one more time and say it with your chest, as they say.
Oh yeah, say it with my chest. LinkedIn's top voice for 2022 fashion and beauty industry, one of, and I was in very good company. Talking about Rent the Runway, you're talking about I think it's Harlem Fashion. I'm trying to remember her name, Bernice, I think it is. So pretty awesome group of people that I was in company with. But if I go back to that conversation that we had about being in a club and trying to join a club, and the focus being all my energies trying to spend doing that, I would have lost on that opportunity to be a LinkedIn top voice. That opportunity came because I decided to create my own club. I decided that I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to bring women together. Because I think when I started my LinkedIn Live, I started this series called Women Making an Impact. And I had women from different backgrounds and different experiences joining me in conversation where we talked about the things that they were doing. For instance, one conversation was, women and finance. That's a big thing. Like women aren't good with money, and the narratives that were surrounding us when it comes to finance.
Yeah.
And being able to have an expert come on with me, join me, and have that conversation that, yeah, this is how women are actually better with money, right? And being able to do that simply came by me deciding to build my own club. And sometimes that's what's required. If you're in a career and a job and you realize you're not moving up, you're not getting to that level that you want to go, or you're looking at an organization like, oh, invite me, please invite me. It's like, create your own, share your voice, share experiences, build your community, because at the end of the day, what that does, it not only shows your credibility, but you're creating a space where maybe there's someone that wanted the same experience, right? And I find when you're starting out, I may be stepping on some toes here, you're more open to accept or have people join you at your table,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's less, what do you have? What can you bring? In the sphere of trying to assess who come at your table. When you're building, you're welcoming everyone. You want to have an open dialogue. You want to continue the conversation. You want to create the same thing that you may have been seeking for someone else. At least that's what my role was. It's like, I want to create a space where women can come into and have the same experience that I was looking for.
Well,
Yeah.
first, you need to let us know about those things because we will shout you out on a regular basis. But that is huge. LinkedIn is a tremendous platform, particularly right in industry, being able to connect with people that are making decisions and people that are influencing. And so the fact that you were named as one of those voices is impressive. We are honored to have you on our show talking about these really important topics. So kudos to you. And one of the things that we want to now open it up for questions to folks that are listening. We posted this on social throughout the week, and we've had a couple questions that we'll share with you as well. If you guys are listening live right now, please go ahead and chime in. But I know that there was a question, and this is something that resonated with me as well. I have so many clothes in my closet. I don't have room for any other clothes. So I actually need to get a process for any new item I bring
I'm just gonna silently go,
get rid of 5. But what are some of those kind of key pieces that every Black professional woman should have in her wardrobe?
Okay, so remember I said I don't like to go according to the rules and be boxed into any space.
Yeah.
That also relates to your closet. Personal style is very much so personal. I am not in that mindset or in that space where I'm like recommending the 10 must have things that every Black professional woman should have in her closet, because we have to consider her personality. We have to consider her lifestyle activities. Where is she going? What is she doing? We have to consider her message. How does she want to show up? What does she want to say?
Yeah.
And so for me, when we take all those ingredients, it's how you get to what are your top 10 pieces that is going to allow you to do that. I remember from our conversation, one of the things that you were talking about is this idea of redefining the hoodie and changing the narrative on that. That's for you. That's That's your piece. That's your power piece. And so if we were styling you based on that, it's like taking that and how can we have that message and alignment in your reflected in your personal style. The only thing that I would say a Black woman must have and should have, and this goes for anyone, good bra and underwear. I have a pet
You
peeve.
sound like my mother right there.
I have a pet peeve, and this is again, this is where we have to recognize and our own beliefs and biases and try not to project it on anyone that may not view it the same way. I have a personal pet peeve and preference when it comes to panty lines. I don't want to see them. I don't need you to know that I'm wearing it cut shape like that. Like I don't. And so luckily brands have now recognized that we want to have that seamless look as well. And so for women, you can have that seamless look without wearing a thong. You can wear seamless panties that is not going to give you that seam and like that's a big pet peeve of mine. So I'd say make sure you get your bra fitting done because a lot of us are not wearing the correct bra size, and invest in some seamless panties. Like you don't, yeah, those are my only two must have. Anything else comes from, as I said, who you are, how you want to show up, and what feels more comfortable for you based on your lifestyle.
Yes, yes. Well, and I have to be full disclosure here. Probably very rarely would I have been talking about underwear publicly in the public domain outside of my friends group, but I think it's really important. One of the things that I notice that including like, pops of color or my hoodie, like, right, how I'm reframing how we think about the hoodies or clothes that I just feel that just feel good when they're on,
Yeah.
is your bra and your panties. Like, right, that is like it doesn't have to be what other people see you wearing to give you that power in the morning. It literally can be your bra or your panties or your socks, something that people may not be paying attention to, but it gives you that sense of power, pride, whatever it is that you're looking for. So there's a lot of different ways. It could be your glasses, it could be your earrings, it could be something super subtle, but whatever it is, find it.
Yeah, absolutely. Find it, embrace it, and be consistent with it. If you decided that you're going to embrace and wear more colors, find don't walk into the store and buy the black and you said to yourself, I am going to wear and embrace more colors.
Yeah.
And you don't have to your point, Angela, it doesn't have to be a lot. Just find, if it's one thing. I've seen some influencers, some black women on social media who I'm just trying to remember her name. I was on Instagram doing the scroll and I saw her and she's like, her uniform is give me that turtleneck and some really cool glasses. That became her thing.
Yeah.
It feels comfortable to her. She feels confident in it. And it's easy for you to brand. It's like, oh yes, Angela is known for that. Angela is known for this, right? But have fun with it. I'm one of those persons, it may be the way my mind works. I'm not very good with, I need to stick with 5 colors and that's it. I'm not that person. I like having fun with my style. I like expressing myself in various ways. Most of the way I show up comes as well from how I feel. Like if I want to feel powerful and confident at a networking event, there's no way you're going to see me wearing flats. I'm 5 feet. I'm super petite. There's nothing about this frame that says powerful. Right? And so powerful is one of my words. Like I want to feel and look powerful. It's not powerful where I'm like strength, but powerful in terms of my posture, the way that I speak and the way that I show up. Right. And so I'm going to be in heels. I've accepted and I'm comfortable wearing heels, but that may not be your thing. Whatever you're comfortable wearing, that's going to allow you to project the image that you want and give you the confidence that you need. Do that.
And stay tuned. Here in about 5 minutes, Solita and I are going to have a special announcement where you will actually be able to find out what your power suit is, what your comfortable outfit is, how to design for empowerment and style for impact. We have something special coming up, but the last question that was asked, and this is something that actually really resonates with me. I remember when I was working with the WNBA, we had so many players that were really fashionistas. And you had Elisa Leslie, who's beautiful. She was a model. She's 6'5". Everything that she wore looked good on her. And you presume that everything she bought in a designer store. And Lisa talked a lot about, like, she would have pieces. So maybe she had a piece that was expensive, but she would pair it with something that she got at the flea market or something that she found in a discount store. But it looked like $1,000,000. And it wasn't because of the label, it was because of how she felt as she was wearing that. And so I think this is a really important question that came up from one of our listeners is, how can I build a professional wardrobe on a budget?
Yes, that's a question, especially right now when we think about investing in our professional image and style. It's like we're trying to manage our funds, available funds, and at the same time represent yourself. It's important. First of all, you have to clearly define what your personal style is. Clearly define what your personal style is. One of the ways that I find that we waste money is when we don't know what our personal style is and we just walk into a store and just buying at random. Right? Clearly define what your personal style is. Clearly identify your lifestyle activities. What do I mean by that? If you work 5 days a week and 3 days out of the week you're showing up on camera, or you're meeting clients, or you are doing presentations, is knowing what that is and how do you want to show up. Okay, I want what's most comfortable for me when I'm doing this. Do I want to wear pants, dresses, or skirts? Do I want to wear a pop of color? If I'm on video, I know I have to wear a pop of color, so that means I have to invest in colorful tops. And once you have that outline, make a list of, what do I need in my closet? First of all, go in your closet and see what you have that aligns with your personal style. Purge it, gift what you need to gift to someone that doesn't align with that or doesn't fit you. Anything that you are like, oh yeah, I may wear this in the future, but you haven't worn it in a while. Ask yourself why you haven't worn it in a while. And from that, make I'm calling you out. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I'm putting you on blast, but I'm not sorry. And so then sit down, pen and paper, just like you would go grocery shopping, or you're trying to bake a cake and you're making a list of all the ingredients that you need. It's the same thing when it comes to your style. Make a list of all the things that you need. So I have 3 days a week I need to be on Zoom. I need colorful tops. I only have 2. What do I want to add to my closet? I need 2 more. Okay. How much do I have, disposable income do I have to invest in my image? And it should be part of your personal and professional development. Same way you buy courses, same way you invest in services. It's the same thing when it comes to your personal style, because this is your branding. This is what speaks for you. You carry yourself in a way to attract those opportunities. Once you have that list and you know what your disposable income is, identify brands that are going to, I'm going to say this slowly. Identify brands where you can purchase quality pieces. It does not mean that you need to spend $300. It simply means that you're going to identify the brands that, if you bought the shirt today and you wore it 3 times for the month, it's not asking you, what are you trying to do? Because it's hanging on the side. It's like, no. And I'm going to give you an example of going with what Lisa Leslie talked about, that high-low fashion mixing in quality pieces, something that you may decide that, okay, I'm going to be wearing a lot of blazers. Can I invest in 2 or 3 good quality blazers that I can mix and match with the lower end pieces that I have? For those of you who are following me on LinkedIn, who are watching me on LinkedIn, I posted a photo of myself where the caption started $107.00. That was a total of the outfit that I was wearing. And when you look
With
at
that
it,
$1 million.
great in it. I
Yeah.
felt great in it. So it's not, as you said, it's not the cost, but those pieces. So don't think about, oh, I need to buy a $20 shirt. That's not your first thought. Is what do I need? Identify the brands. And if you have to budget for it, that's okay.
Yeah.
You're not buying a full closet. You can decide this paycheck is going to be 2 shirts. We mark that off. Next paycheck is going to be a pants and shoes. Mark that off. That's how you budget. But we have this thing when we think of budgeting, it's, oh, I need to buy something cheap.
Yeah.
It's like, no. Decide how much disposable income you have to invest in your image.
Yeah.
And that's how you set your budget.
Well, it's like the saying, work smarter, not harder. Like, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Let your wardrobe work smarter for you. And it doesn't have to be the price points. And as a matter of fact, Solita just shared, right? Like sometimes how she was feeling, it was tough to get out of bed sometimes, right? Well, I'll guarantee you, if you are spending more on clothing than you can afford, it doesn't matter what that clothing looks like on you, because you won't be pulling it off the way that you think you are, because the energy that you're giving off and how you're feeling about yourself will not be matching where your intentions are. So really important. I think those are some fantastic tips. And we're going to get more of those because drum roll, please, like an audio engineer.
We can do it. I saw a drum roll on it. You can actually do it on Canva presentation. I'm like, yeah.
Okay, we're going to add that next time. We're going to add that for sure. Well, I am honored because so many different reasons, but for who you are and what you're doing. But I had an interesting relationship with style, like, right, of learning my personal style. It was impacted by so many different things. But until I spoke with you and actually watched some of your videos before you came on the podcast and reframed my perspective about what style truly is, it's not the clothes you have hanging up on that hanger in your closet. It's about the mindset. And so Solita and I are going to get together for a workshop here in about a month called Unpacking Your Emotional Suitcase and Styling for Impact. And really, this is going to be the nexus between mindset and style. Yeah. And we're going to do it in a way that's going to hopefully help you have an impact in whatever domain that you're operating in, whether it's in your professional life, if it's in your personal life. We're going to have a lot of fun in this workshop. Yeah. We're going to roll up our sleeves in this workshop, and we're going to get after it. Like when we talk about that emotional suitcase, right? For some, it may be a bigger suitcase than it is for others. But sometimes we get in our own way of our ability to show up powerfully. And so we're going to find the ways that you want to show up. Power for me may feel and look very different than power for Solita does. And we're going to talk about that. So you have your own individual formula for how you can style for impact. So Solita, like, tell us about your perspective on this workshop.
Oh, first of all, I'm going to say this: representation matters in the images that we use and how we represent ourselves. I was just looking at that graphic and I'm like, the representation in the natural hair and the colors, exactly what we're going to be talking about in this workshop. The things that parts of ourselves that we're holding back and hiding because we don't want to be seen as too much. But in realizing when we actually step into who we are, to show up how we choose to be and who we choose to be, the impact that it can have on not only ourselves, because when we see ourselves, it's like, oh my gosh, Black girl magic, right? And when others are seeing us, they can see a representation of themselves. I have this mantra that I have, that representation is not just you being in the room or having a seat at the table, but it's also how you show up. And that's part of what we're going to be talking about in this workshop. Talking about how can you represent yourself in the spaces that you're going into, spaces where you might have been told, don't bring your full and authentic self. And you might have shrunk to fit that narrative. That mindset shift, we're going to change that. Emotional suitcase. I mean, think about your suitcase. When you go on, I think about it when we were, wordsmithing and coming up with a title for that. I think about going on a workshop, going on vacation, sorry, and you had a fun time or whatever. You come home and it's like you just dump the suitcase and you don't want to unpack it.
Yeah. Oh my
and
goodness.
and then and then one day you realize that no, it's been 3-4 days now. I need to unpack this suitcase. So we're using that suitcase as a way of you thinking about all the things that you're holding on to that you need to let go of, that you need to say, I am no longer going to carry this weight and I'm going to show up for myself, styling for impact.
Yes, yes. You remind me of we had Ramona Jackson on, who is the Bourbon Bohemian. And we're gonna have actually a cool thing come up with Ramona as well. But she talked about like she had this kind of junk drawer.
Yeah.
That right, you can throw things in and just hide it away and not have to pay attention to it. But at some point you need to get to start to dig into that junk drawer. And that's what we're going to talk about. Like, right, like we all have it. There's something, again, it could be insignificant. It could be significant enough to prevent you from actually showing up the way that you want to be showing up. We're going to talk about that in a way that's safe. It's going to be cathartic, where you realize that you're not alone. It's going to be a really engaging and interactive workshop where you'll be able to connect with other like-minded individuals who are on their own journey, who you may be able to learn from and learn with as well. And so we're really excited about this workshop. You can see at the bottom of the screen, for the next week and a half, you'll be able to register and you'll be able to get a early bird registration, $100 off the fee for this workshop. It's a 4-hour workshop, which will be held on Saturday, May 20th from noon to 4 p.m. Eastern or 9 to 1 Pacific time. 4 hours. We'll have some pre-work, some assessments for you to do on your own. We'll have some interactive exercises and small group exercises that you'll do with the other attendees. And then Solita and I are going to try to do our things and talk about mindsets, how to define the mindset that you want to be occupying, and style. Solita will work her magic and help you start to develop your own style. And then you also have a chance to be a few of the few people that will have a chance to be coached by Solita and I as well. We're not taking a lot of people on. This will be a small, intimate group. So first come, first serve. There's not going to be a lot of people in the groups because we want you all to be able to connect with each other. So sign up today. We want to see you in the room. Yeah. We want to connect with you. You can see on the screen where you can find us. You can find us at stylingforimpact.eventbrite.com and register today. The early bird tickets are limited and are only on sale for the next 10 days, I believe. And then the full price. It'll be $397 is the full price. Early bird is $297, a discount for 4 hours and some quality support and guidance that you'll receive on that Saturday.
Absolutely. I am super, super excited for this and the transformation that the attendees will go through, right? Because it's not going to be anything like you've ever witnessed on anywhere that you would have gone, because we're focusing on transformation. We're focusing on you showing up as your best self. So I'm like super excited for this. Like, yes.
Yes. And I'm looking forward because the transformation that I will experience as well is I learned so much. And so we talked about this. We learned so much from all of you. So whether it's your questions that you're sharing, the feedback that you have about Solita's LinkedIn Lives, about our Unlocking the Club podcast, or any of our content, I am looking forward to being in that room, that space with people that have similar lived experiences and learning from you and helping me continue to develop my own personal style as well. So make sure you sign up today. This information will be available on all of our social media channels, so you can find it anywhere that you can find Unlocking the Club or Style to Impact. And we'll be pushing out a lot of information about it. Get signed up. Solita, what else would you like to share before we head out and go watch this NFL draft?
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking about you there for a moment. I was like, yes. What would I really want to leave with everyone listening and those that may be curious as to whether or not this workshop is for them, It's I was kind of researching some, like, my thoughts in terms of what I wanted to say. And I want everyone to think about the next step in their life, the next action that they're going to take, and to make that as fearless and impactful as possible. Like, what do you want? This is going to sound very morbid, and maybe I'll share some of that on the workshop so you get a true understanding as to why I'm so passionate about living your best life, because this is your best life that you have, right? It's not allowing anyone to dictate how you should show up. And I really want, if anything, if you watch this conversation live or you're watching a replay and you're listening and you're like, the one thing I want you to take away from this is to stop conforming or holding on to the narrative of what others are saying about you that you know you are not. And start letting go, be free, express yourself, be yourself, go into the spaces and places that you really want to go into, and knowing that not every space and place will celebrate you, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Just don't stay in that space.
Yes. Yes. No, we're gonna get into it as well. Like I've been thinking a lot about this workshop, and I was reflecting a few weeks ago as we were starting to plan this workshop, and I actually was able to point back to one of the earliest memories that I have about my relationship with styles and clothing that has influenced, and not necessarily positively, influenced my style choices. And I'll share that story with you all. It's opened things up for me, and I see it showing up in so many different ways over the course of my life for the 45 years since that happened. So really important discussions. We're going to share our own personal stories and journey with you all as well, so that you can connect and find yourself inside of it. But thank you all. Solita, thank you for jumping on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube today for this live conversation. For those of you that joined us live, thank you. Thank you for the great questions. If you're watching this on the replay, please make sure to leave any comments or questions, and we will try to respond to your questions after the fact as well. Again, on behalf of Solita Roberts, amazing image stylist and consultant, and myself and our Unlocking the Club team, thank you for joining us. Please make sure that you subscribe to the Unlocking the Club podcast so you continue to hear more about our upcoming events, such as the Unpacking Your Emotional Suitcase and Styling for Impact, as well as other events and conversations that we'll be having. You can subscribe on any platform that you use to listen to podcasts, and you can also follow us on social media. Again, for Unlocking the Club, until next time, I hope I see many of you on May the 20th for our workshop. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be informative. It's going to be powerful. And I hope that you're there. Until next time, I'm your host, Angela Taylor. Thanks for joining us here on Facebook Live for Unlocking the Club's conversation with Solita C. Roberts.
Thank you.